Okay, when introducing 20, what you'll want to do is introduce the 20 frame. And again, explain to them by the time you're working on this, they'll be, towards the middle of end of first grade, beginning of second grade. So they'll have some familiarity with, 10 frames. So just want to explain that a 20 frame is a 10 frame and a 10 frame working together to make a 20 frame. Now, you don't want to spend a lot of time having them just make different numbers, making 17, making 6. By then they're going to have that, the partitioning of numbers. They should have a good solid foundation on that. So at this point now, what we're really doing is trying to teach them how their knowledge of 10, how they can build upon that to help them work with 20. So if you take a look at this, like just visually, this looks really overwhelming. So you want to say, okay, if we have 10 here, and we have 7 red here, we have 17, right? And if we take a look, what goes with 17 to make 20 will be 3. Then what you can do is you can say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cover this up right here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a arrow card here. So everybody remembers, okay, yes, this is 10. And I'm going to go ahead and have everybody remember that. So that's 10. So then visually it's not going to be as overwhelming to them. So we could say, okay, if we have 17 red, right? If we have 17 red, what goes with 7 to make 10? Well, our 1's right here, so we have our 7 1. So what goes with 7 to make 10 would be 3. So what's going to go with 17 to make 10? And again, that's going to go ahead and that's going to be 3. Okay. So what you're doing, yes, you're introducing 10, and this is now where you can introduce sort of these place value arrow cards right here. And let's try another one. So take a look right here. We now have 18, right? We know that there's 10 right here, and we know that we have our 10 right there. So what goes with and then we have our 8 right here. So what goes with 8 to make 10 would be 2. So what's going to go with 18 to make 10 is also going to be 2. All right. So remember, kids are really good at 9 and 8 and 7 and 6 and 5 and doing all that. So now we'll go ahead and we'll say, okay, let's say we have something like 13, right? 13 is a lot harder for kids to work on because they need to know what front 3 goes with 7 to make 10. So if you say 13, again, we have our 10 right here. Go ahead and show it to them. And actually, we'll make these ones yellow. So we have our 10 red and our 10 frame right there. And then we have our 3, which is right here. So what goes with 3 to make 10 would be 7. So what's going to go with 13 to make 10? Again, and that's going to be 7. So what we're doing here is when you're working with the 20 frame, it's not as much about having them build, make the 10 here, the 10 here, and constantly changing. It's saying, okay, we already know this is 10. We're not going to spend all this time having kids build 10, build 10, build 10. What we're going to really focus on are the 1s. And when we're focusing on the 1s, we're going to make sure that they understand the connection. Whatever these 1s are to make 10, it's going to be the same relationship that they had when they made 20. All right. And again, you could get out other 10 frames too, and you could say, this is where you can really expand it and say, okay, let's say we had 4 10 frames, right? 4 10 frames. So if this is 43, right? If this is 43, and let's say we had a 10 frame here and here and here, and these 10 frames are all there, and we said this is 43, what's going to go with what goes with 3 to get to the next 10? So we went from making 20 to making the next 10. And you'll see when we go the numbers beyond 20 and 30 and 40 up to 100, it's important that they can go 17 to 20 is 3. 47 to 50 would be 3, or 43 to 50, the next 10. So this is when you can also introduce to them a concept called the next 10 too. So they've learned base 10, and then we went from 10 to 20, and then now we can start to go, 20, what's the next 10 after 25? And it would be 30. Also, if you think about rounding, how important this is too, where kids really struggle with rounding, how to do that. All right, and then this next one too, these ones are pre-made in there, they're in your materials, and it's just, you don't even have to worry about getting the counters, you just go ahead and you'd flash them to them. And again, we'd say, all right, this right here, this one is 10 right here, And we know that this one right here is 7. Find the 7. And of course I'm missing the 7. So we're going to go ahead and put one, or there's 6 there, I'm sorry, anyways, there's 6. So we'd have 10 and 6 again. There's our arrow card right there for 16. We have our 10 here, our 6, and then we can go ahead and we can layer it and do it that way. All right. So that's one concrete way that you can go ahead and introduce that. Another tool that you can use is you can go ahead and use the 20 frame. And here's what the 20 frame looks like. If you take a look, it's a 10, or not a 20 frame, it's a 10 rack. So we have a 10 rack here, 10 here, 10 here, broken up in 5 and 5, just like the one they saw earlier. You can say, all right, let's go ahead and let's break it, let's make it. We have 15 here. If this is 15, how much more we need to get to 20? We know that would be 5. Let's say it's 13 here. And if I had 13 here, how much more would I need to make 20? And it would be 7. And then again, what you can do is you can go ahead and you can add a screen onto something like this, screen it, and then you can go ahead and give them the first number and say, all right, we have 10 here, we have 3. What went with 3 to make 10? What's going to go with 13 to make 20? Constantly going back and reinforcing that. And that's a concrete experience as well. Okay, the next are these cards, and these are great too because it breaks down the thinking, all right? A lot of kids aren't going to have the strategy, so if you say, okay, we have 8 and we need to get to 20, how much more we need? A lot of kids are going to go ahead and try to count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up. So you teach say, okay, think of the concept of the next 10, okay? If we're building 20, what's the next 10? Well, 8 to the next 10 would be 2, and that gives us 10. Then 10 to 20 is how much? It would be 10, so we know that that one's 12. And then we have right here, so we want 5. We want to know, we have 5, but we want 20. How much would there be? 5 to 10. And then we would need another 10 from there. So 5, and then we need 5 to get to 10, and that would be 15. And again, this is breaking down the thinking. Then finally you can get to a point where you confront with a smaller one like this and say, okay, we have 15. How much more we need to get to 20? We know that would have to be, we know that that would be 5. So go ahead and go